Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the AIM on MS&T podcast. I'm your host, Kate, and I'm so glad you have joined us today. If you are new here, let's catch you up. AIM stands for Academia, Industry, and Military, which are the sectors that form the foundation of the modeling, simulation, and training community right here in Central Florida. Together, they make up what is known as Team Orlando, a collaborative partnership driving innovation and mission readiness through MS&T. Each episode, we sit down with leaders and innovators within the MS&T world to talk about what's new, what's next, and why it matters, especially to our Team Orlando community. Whether you're deep in the field or just curious about one of Orlando's biggest industries, second only to the theme parks and hospitality industry, we're here to keep you informed, inspired, and part of the conversation. This episode is brought to you in part by Capital Communications and Consulting, telling your story across all platforms with a clear focus and innovative impact. Whether you want to elevate your message, grow your presence, or connect with the right audience, the C3 team will help bring your story to life. Learn more at mycapitalcommunications.com. Today, our guest is Mr. John Meyers, Executive Director for the Naval Air Warfare Center Training Systems Division, also known as NAWCTSD, in Orlando, Florida. Thank you for joining us on here today. To start us off, can you tell our audience a bit about yourself? Also, as you do that, please walk us through your career journey with the Navy and what led you to your current role today.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thanks for the opportunity. I would say I wasn't really supposed to be here. I was supposed to be a steelworker. I grew up in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Father was a steelworker. Uncles were steelworkers. Grandfather, all steelworkers. I was a junior in high school when that's all I thought about was doing what my family did.
Mm-hmm.
The steel mill shut down when I was a junior, so my dad came home from dinner one day and said, "Hey, well, that's it. After 28 years in the mill, they're all shut down." To me, that was, I was terrified. I'm like, what am I going to do? And without blinking, he said, "Hey, this is your opportunity to do something different." Right?
Mm-hmm.
He was all in on it. To him, it was a good thing. I didn't see it at the time. I was devastated, but it did. It led to me going to Penn State and getting an engineering degree. There were special loans and grants for steelworker kids. So my parents gave me $100 to go to college. That's what we had, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I worked a couple of jobs, to get myself through college. And then I found this co-op program with the Naval Air Development Center in Warminster, Pennsylvania. You'd go to school semester and then you'd work a semester. So I needed the money and I was like, that sounds like a fun thing to do. And no sooner did I start working there, I got hooked. I mean, it was all about the mission. It wasn't necessarily about the type of work. It was all about the mission. It was saving lives for the Navy. I got a chance to get involved as a co-op student working on survival vests and body armor. So then when I graduated from Penn State, they wanted me to continue, but I also had an opportunity to get my master's. So I did the same thing. I worked a semester and went to school semester. So then I graduated with my master's, got a full-time position at a Naval Air Development Center, NADC. And then I became quickly involved with leading the survival vest and body armor program. I got a patent for that work. That was kind of fun. It was a tri-service program. So my brother, who enlisted in the Army and then later was able to enroll in West Point and actually went from a crew chief to a pilot of a helicopter pilot. He was able to wear the survival vest and body armor that I was able to develop with some folks from the Army and the Navy. So that was kind of a fun project, if you will. No sooner did that happen when they started talking about the BRAC, the base relocating and closure. Hopefully we never hear that term in the near future, but back in 96 timeframe, they said, "Hey, we're closing Warminster and we're going to move everyone to Pax River, Maryland." Of course, to me, that was scary. I asked my family, "Hey, what do I do?" And of course, my dad, his favorite word was, "Well, it sounds like an opportunity," right? So I moved down. Only about 20% of the workforce from Warminster actually moved to Pax River. So it was an opportunity. I was able to quickly get promoted into some high-speed test facilities. So that was probably the funnest part of my career was working in the labs. We got to to test ejection seat equipment, helicopter safety equipment. We would crash things on purpose to see what happened. So it was a lot of fun. I mean, that working in the labs was probably the funnest part of my career, really taking that engineering stuff that I learned in school and putting it into practice. And then as I went on in my career, I became a branch head, which was probably the hardest job I ever had. I mean, to me, the engineering part was easy. The people part was the hardest, right? But it was the most rewarding. I mean, I loved being a first-line supervisor. And then from that, I became a division head. I worked with PMA 202. I was able to kind of get into program management, so I honed that skill. It's funny, as an engineer, you want everything to be 100% perfect. As a program manager, you're happy with the 80% solution. So I think that really helped me get well-rounded and try to understand what it really took to get stuff out to the fleet. And then from there, I became the chief engineer for PMA 205, which was a great opportunity. I didn't really get involved with training systems as much as crew systems. So from a human systems integration perspective, that really opened up my aperture to learn. I was a NAWCTSD employee stationed at Pax River. So my supervisor was here, but I sat at Pax. I sat next to a program manager, and I was accountable to him, but I was also accountable to my supervisor here, and I was also accountable to another chain that dealt with systems engineering. So I sort of had three bosses, and it was interesting because I had to make sure all three were aligned. And so that was an interesting challenge because they were not when I first got there, and that taught me a lot of things. And then from there, I was able to become a deputy for Human Systems Department, which then led me to this job back in 2013. So I've been kind of heading south, started in Pennsylvania, then to Maryland, Pax River, and now I'm here in Orlando. So I don't know, maybe Key West is next. I don't know, but hey, I'm not complaining. So that's kind of been my journey, but I think kind of who I am and how I think is there's no matter how crazy the situation, there's always an opportunity. I mean, and I could tell you, we've been through a lot over the last year with DRP, deferred resignation program, with kind of canceling, remote telework. With all the stuff that we've been through over the past year, I've just learned that, hey, there's an opportunity, and we've done a lot of great things. As a matter of fact, I think throughout all that adversity over the last year, the command here has been just sailing through that, and probably I think we've had our best year ever here, as far as I'm concerned. So that's sort of my journey and kind of who I am and how I think. And I'd say one other thing, a lot of folks know I'm a big sports fan. So, Pittsburgh Pirates, Penguins, Steelers. And when I was in Maryland, my son was born. And if you know anything about the Steelers, big rivalry is the Baltimore Ravens. And so the two football teams where my son was born was Baltimore and Washington, and I was very concerned that he would be a Ravens fan. So I was trying to convince my wife at the time that we would, maybe put a tattoo of a Steeler logo on my newborn. She, of course, thought I was insane. So we compromised, and so we started trying to pick out names. I was saying, hey, Roethlisberger's a good name, Franco's a good name. So we ended up with his middle name is Steele. So I don't know if any of you people out there are fans of football. You're not a fan unless you brand your newborn with the name of your favorite football team. Absolutely. So I'll put the challenge out there now for anybody who thinks they're a diehard fan. There you go.
Building on that, your career spans safety systems, human integration, large-scale training systems, and now executive leadership. How have you adapted your mindset with each transition?
Yeah, I don't know if I've really adapted my mindset, but I would say there's two fundamental things that I've always really focused on: people and process. So no matter what role I had early in my career to now, it's still the same. It's people and process. You could, if you build relationships with folks, you can solve any problem. I mean, very hard problems, if you got the right people and you have the good relationships, you'll figure out the solution. If you look at a process, if you have folks that just don't get along, but you have a really good process, the process will guide you to the solution, right? So if you've got really strong people and really strong processes, then you're really working on all 8 cylinders and nothing can get in your way. I mean, that's just foundationally what's driven me throughout the years. So no matter where I have been, I really invested in the people, try and get to know my peers, my leaders, stakeholders in the project or whatever. Because at the end of the day, we're all human, and we all want that we have the same goals.
Right.
And so, any disagreement, you find that opportunity to agree on the goal, and you figure out the solution. And along the way, if there was challenging processes or no process, and focused on that too to really help guide and then hopefully leave that behind. So when I'm on to the next thing, at least, you've built those relationships and then you built those processes so that folks who are leading behind you, have a solid footing. So that's kind of helped me throughout my career, but I don't think I've really changed my mindset from that perspective. Those two things have helped me really meet any challenge along the way. And I got a feeling this year is going to probably be the most challenging. Even last year with all its challenges, I'm sure this year is going to be even more fun.
How are you working to change the culture within your organization to prioritize delivering products and services to the fleet in a timely manner?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'd say 3 or 4 years ago, we were really trying to figure out who we were as a command. What's our purpose? We sat down as a leadership team. We read the book Good to Great together and learned a lot of things from that. And we kind of tried to figure out what is our why. We pulled out Simon Sinek's Golden Circle. What is your why? If you know what your why is, then what is your how and your what. And we really looked at ourselves and tried as an organization and a command to figure out what is our why. And it was pretty clear. I mean, obviously, we're here for the mission. We're here for our warfighters. We want to make sure we're giving our warfighters the best products as fast as we can so that they can do their job and come home safe. I mean, we're not here to make money for our shareholders. That's not what we're about. And I think that's what a lot of folks who work here are tied to that mission. And so when we sat down as a team, we basically said, well, how do we convey that to everybody? It's kind of, we understand it, we know it. We came out with a vision statement because we really didn't have one, to be honest with you. Were we a research facility? Were we an acquisition command? What were we? Who were we? So we really grounded ourselves with that mission statement. And if you look in our elevator, if you look in the signature line of all 1,200 folks, usually you'll see our vision statement: accelerating warfighter readiness through training solutions. Short and sweet. Mm-hmm. And I think the key word is accelerating. We realized that we got to go as fast as possible. Our customers, they need their stuff as fast as possible so they could do their job and come home safe. So I think, went full bore on that first word, on accelerating. And that kind of carried into our vision. We looked at ourselves and we said, well, what are the most important thing for our customers? That's delivering those products. Are we measuring that? We were not. We didn't really know how many products we were delivering or if they were even on time or late. And so we started to look at that. We started to define, well, what is a product? Is it a systems engineering technical review? Is that a product? Not really. Our customers don't really care if we have a review or if we delivered a document. They want to get their simulator or their classroom or their training in place. That's what they care about. So we spent some time defining what our deliverables were. We realized we have about 400 a year. And then we quickly realized that we're about 50% late. So we were like, that's not really good. Yeah. How do we energize the entire organization and rally everybody to look at that? Well, you got to measure it. And so if you think about delivering products, that's sort of the lagging indicator. If you're late, you can't fix it. So how do we get some of those what we call leading indicators? So we quickly said, our contractual vehicles are really what is a leading indicator. If we get our contracts awarded on time, then in theory we set up the deliveries for success. So we quickly got the leadership team together and said, how do we measure our contracts? And we were finding that we were about 70-ish% on time with our contract awards. So we quickly started to focus in on those contract awards. And that took us about a year to learn that, if we were focused on awarding the contracts, if we were looking at it and saying, hey, we're supposed to have these awarded this week, well, this week was too late. So we went from that lagging indicator to a leading indicator of, are we getting our requests for proposals out on time? That's the start of the contract process. And we focused heavily on that. And once we started to figure out that, hey, we're getting our request for proposal out on time or not, what's preventing us, we started to rally around our product directors and say, what do you need to make sure that that's set up for success? So it took us about 2 or 3 years, but this past year, we are at 94% contract awarded on time. We actually got up to 98%. Contracts awarded on time. As a matter of fact, our FY25, it was at 98%. Maintaining that is just as challenging. We got to continue that focus on that, I'll say the schedule.
Right.
You think about acquisition, I don't want to say it's easy, but there's really only 3 variables. It's cost, schedule, and performance. For years, we were heavily focused on performance. We would spend, 8 months perfecting a statement of work when, that was 8 months of time that we're not getting products out to the fleet. So our deliverables, our products that we were getting out to the fleet, we finally got up to 92%, which is phenomenal. I mean, we went from 50% a couple of years ago to 92%. So team across the whole organization, we look at those metrics on a regular basis, our awards or our contracts awarded on time and our deliveries on time. And now we're in the 90 plus percentile. Our goal is 100%. Yeah. Obviously, we want to make sure that, and we're actually tracking how are there contracts and deliverables that we're delivering early. So now we're not only awarding on time, we're pushing to do things early. We have to. I mean, our customers demand it. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of the drive and the vision that got us to where we are.
As part of that focus on a timely delivery and execution, you've set a goal of achieving 100% concurrency rate across training systems. What does that mean in practice, and why is it so important to fleet readiness?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're not satisfied with getting 100% contract award on time and 100% delivery. So we're trying to push ourselves, to go from that good to great or great to greater. We are trying to understand, okay, let's say we deliver 100% on time. Are we delivering the right thing? Right. So this concurrency is really something now that we're going to strive for. So if an aircraft, a ship, or sub has a new, system, are we delivering that training concurrent with the delivery of that system? Can we get the training products out even earlier? Right. I would argue now sometimes we're a version behind. We may be delivering it on time, but the version that we're delivering may be a little outdated from what's currently out in the fleet. So we want to make sure that we're going to push ourselves to get 100% concurrent. What we're really striving for, though, is not just concurrency. I would say that's a leading indicator of what we're truly after. What we're truly after is training effectiveness. We want to make sure that the products we're delivering are 100% effective. That, whatever that is, if it's a simulator, if it's courseware, if it's instructor-led classrooms, that the warfighter that's receiving that training is able to retain that, go out, do their job, and come home safe. And we're striving hard to figure out, how do you measure that? How do you measure training effectiveness to know that it's good? So a leading indicator is if at least we're concurrent with the systems out there, we think that's on a good footing to chase that 100% effectiveness in training. If we can get that right, then our ultimate journey that we're on is 100% training effectiveness. Right. So we're not satisfied now with 98% contract award and 94% delivery. Obviously, we want to get to 100%, but now we're on to the next thing, which is even more important, is that training effectiveness and chasing that never-ending pursuit of going from good to great as an organization, and why we exist.
To make that goal a reality, what steps are you taking to improve schedule performance so that products and services reach the fleet faster? How are you driving better schedule discipline across the organization without sacrificing the quality or the safety?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, I would say acquisition has the 3 variables: cost, schedule, performance. We've shifted the culture over the years from, focusing heavily on it's got to be 100% perfect to it's a capital S, the schedule piece. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, we're really trying to change the culture now that we're focused on that schedule to be really, I would say, the 4th variable in acquisition. That's risk. We're a little bit risk intolerant. We don't like to take risk. I would say one area right now that we're really trying to exercise that muscle is in the cyber realm. Cyber continually is changing. As a matter of fact, I think we just got 100 new vulnerabilities that were identified with 100 new controls. And there's a mindset that we got to be 100% cyber safe, which is great. But sometimes to go fast, you may need to take a little bit of risk. What are those risks that you're willing to take? And that's the culture that we're trying to figure out here. Maybe we can do an experiment with a small group to see if we could take some risk and go fast. But if something happens, we can quickly shut that down to mitigate that risk. But our culture here isn't used to that. It's uncomfortable, right? It's kind of like, hey, I'm going to leave my house and not lock any of the doors or windows. That's uncomfortable. Well, maybe we can lock the doors and windows, but we just don't have cameras. That would be an extra step. So you got to figure out, where you're willing to take some of those risks. And it's not just in cyber, it's across everything we do. And I would say that's the journey that we're on, is really getting the culture here to figure out not only how much risk are we willing to take, but at the end of the day, who accepts that risk? Who is the owner of that risk? Sometimes it's easy to just willy-nilly do things, but at the end of the day, are we helping the warfighters at the end? Are we pushing risk to them, or are we taking risk away from them, putting it on ourselves to kind of get those products out to them quicker?
Now, how are you aligning workforce education and skill development with current and emerging warfighter needs as technology and missions evolve? How does that effort feed into the developing of the next generation of leaders at the Naval Air Warfare Center Aircraft Division?
As a Tier 4 organization, NAWCTSD, we're part of NAWCAD, the Tier 3. So if you look at it people-wise, we're about 1,200 folks here at NAWCTSD, but across NAWCAD, there's about 10,000 people. And so NAWCAD has put together a one command mindset called NAWCAD Forward, and there's a strategic focus area specifically in this for the workforce. So think about the challenge of trying to understand the skills for 1,200 people, let alone the skills for 10,000 people. How do you know you're optimized with those 10,000 people doing the right things? So right now, we're pulling together all of the skills across those 10,000 people to understand not only what are the skills they have, but what are the skills that they should have to get all those products and services across all of NAWCAD. And then what are the skills that they not necessarily need today, but they may need 5 or 10 years from now. So those are the foundational building blocks, or those skill sets that we're now tying to products and services today, tomorrow, 5 and 10 years out. I would say we're very much reshaping how we think. We're very good in the tactical day-to-day stuff, but NAWCAD Forward is really looking at that long-term strategic. This is a key foundational area for us, is to really understand our skill sets so that we're prepared not only to deliver the products and services today across NAWCAD, but we're building the training and the education that we will need for the skills that we need 5 or 10 years from now. A big deal, and we've got a lot of folks working in that arena, as well as tools to capture that, so that, again, we could measure ourselves and understand, do we have that right? But that's foundational to everything we do, is really the people. At the end of the day, whether you're working in a comptroller shop or HR or engineering or procurement, all of those disciplines and skills are absolutely critical to make sure we pull these teams together, that they're getting that stuff out to the fleet as fast as possible.
With all that being said, how do the goals of becoming a learning organization and a place where people want to work reinforce each other?
Yeah, that's something that we're striving for, again, on our pursuit from good to great, or great to greater. A learning organization is very hard to achieve. What we're striving for is that we want people to come to work and learn, right? It's challenging enough. You got to come and do your day-to-day tasks to get stuff completed. But what we really want is have people come to work, excited to come to work, because every day is a learning experience. That's what we want. So we want, when this team learns something, we want that to instantaneously go across all of the 400 teams that we have here at TSD, and even broader across NAWCAD, the 10,000 people, so that collectively everybody is up in the game. What we're finding now is we have this team that learns something, and then 6 months later we have this other team sort of learn the same thing. So that's kind of what we're striving for, is getting to that place where whoever's learning is passing that knowledge on, so we could take those lessons learned to lessons applied instantaneously. Very few organizations achieve that, but that's what we're striving for. That's what we're pushing ourselves, is to think long term, to think how do we up our game, not just today, but, 5, 10 years from now. And if anyone has some good examples of things that they've tried to get to that learning organizational model, happy to know what that is, so we could maybe learn from others to help us on our journey. But at the end of the day, we want all 1,200 folks, including myself, to come to work every day and learn something new.
Right.
I think that's what it's all about, because then we could really, get to that optimal stage of what we're striving for, which I just laid out, which, sounds easy on paper, but very hard in practice. And I would say, if we achieve half the stuff that we're after, in the next couple of years, that would be amazing.
As we come to an end, we like to ask this question to wrap things up and give our listeners some final thoughts. What advice would you offer someone who is considering going into a similar career path as you? In particular, what would you tell someone that you wish someone had told you when you were deciding your future career?
Hey, this is something that I talk about anytime we have a new employee. When we do the oath of office, I love doing the oath of office with the new employees. And there's a couple of things. There's 2 pieces of advice that I give them that I wish someone would have gave me early on in my career. Individual development plans. What do you want to be when you grow up? Write that down. It's funny, we're the government. We actually have a form for an individual development plan that you can fill out. But really what it is, it's just, where do you see yourself a year from now? And what do you need in terms of training or education or experience to get you to your career goals a year from now? And then 5 years from now, where do you see yourself? 10 years from now, where do you see yourself? Early in my career, I wasn't even thinking 5 or 10 years out. I was lucky to be thinking about, next week or next month.
Right.
But I think that's important, is if you really take the time to sit down and write it on one single sheet of paper is all you need. Where do you see yourself a year, 5 and 10 years? And then in between there, what do you feel you need education-wise, experience-wise, to get to those career goals 1, 5, and 10 years? And once you're done, don't just stick it in the desk drawer and forget about it. That's something that you should be talking about with your supervisor and looking at on a regular basis. Life changes. I guarantee you your individual development plan will change a million times. But you got to put effort in there. The other key piece is mentors. I learned in my career unknowingly that I had a lot of mentors. I didn't even think about it, but that is something that is really important, is really to have strong mentors. And if you know kind of where you're going long term in your career, seek mentors out in that area who've been on that journey, that maybe can give you some tips and tricks to give you, hey, this is what helped me get to where I am, and that'll help you along the way. So I would say, if you write down what your goals are. I mean, I read somewhere that, when people actually write things down, put their goals, they achieve that 80% of the time. I don't know.
Great,
Sometimes it's great to have it in your head, but if you see it on paper, maybe it's more real. And then when you have it on paper, that, all the more reason to hand it to your mentors and talk to your mentors on a regular basis. And obviously your supervisor, your team lead, key, and family. I don't think I've made a career choice without talking to my family. I mean, as a matter of fact, when I came here, before I even interviewed for this position, I asked my wife and son, hey, what do you think? Do you think I should apply to this? Because at the time we were living in Pax River, Maryland. I said, if I apply and I get it, we'll have to move to Orlando. My wife's like, well, what do you think your odds are? And I'm like, oh, it's going to be very competitive. Maybe a 5% chance. And my son, he was, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 at the time. He's like, well, what about, school and my friends? If I have to move to Orlando, what happens with them? I'm like, well, you make new friends, and you can get a new school, and you can still keep your old friends. And oh, by the way, everyone in Orlando has a pool, so we'll probably have a pool. So he's like, yeah, apply. Well, and so that's important. You really got to pull your family in on these career choices. It's important because when I did get the call and they said, hey, we want to offer you the job, I was like, oh, that's great. Can I get back to you? I got to talk to my family. And I think there was a pause on the other end, like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll give you a day, but we need to know. So at dinner, I sat down and I told my wife and son, hey, I don't want to accept this unless you're willing to go. Of course, my wife's like, I thought it was only a 5% chance. And of course, my son's like, we're getting a pool. I mean, if they said, hey, no, we don't want to, then, so I think that's important advice for anybody, is really spend the time to invest in yourself, figure out what your career goals are, and then figure out what you need to achieve. And again, every day should be a learning experience no matter what you're after. And those are the kind of things that you want to kind of map out for yourself. And, keep your mentors engaged and your family engaged in that career path. That's probably something I wish I would have, learned on day one. It probably took me about 15, 20 years to figure that out.
That's great. Before we sign off, where should our listeners go to find out more about NAWCTSD?
Yeah, so there's a couple of places. Obviously, we've got our website, which is www.navair.navy.mil/NAWCTSD. You go to LinkedIn, it's linkedin.com/company/NAWCTSD, or on Facebook, it's NSA Orlando. So any of those three would be good. But yeah, if you want to give us a call, give us a call. And we're excited to talk to anybody about what we do here. I know we're always recruiting. I would say we would love to get folks to come work with us. A lot of folks don't realize what a federal employee is. Most folks think, I don't want to sign up and be in the Navy or, the services. And we're like, no, there's a whole career of civil service folks out there. Yeah. I've been doing this job. I just say this job. It feels like every couple, 3-4 years, I get a kind of a new job, but it's 36 years now of federal service. And I'm looking to hit 40 here, not too long before I retire. And I can tell you, in my journey, as I sort of described, it's been something different every day, which has been kind of fun. Again, we're not here to make money for our shareholders. We're here for the mission, which to me is the most important thing. It's kind of our why, making sure we're getting those products to our customers so they can come home safe. So if that's kind of what you're interested in, hopefully you're the folks reaching out to us so that we can maybe I could be doing the oath of office for you someday.
And with that, I would like to thank Mr. Meyers for joining us on here today. That's a wrap on this episode. Thank you for tuning in. Want to stay in the loop on what's happening in the modeling and simulation and Team Orlando communities? Head to teamorlando.org and follow us on LinkedIn, X, and Facebook for all the latest updates and upcoming events. If you're looking to spotlight your organization or share your voice on AIM on MS&T, sponsorship and guest opportunities are available. Contact us. The information will be in the description. Don't forget to follow AIM on MS&T on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. I will talk to you all in the next one. Bye.